we know that they've been struggling and that they've lost the excitement, and perhaps they're just struggling to sort of, get their mojo back for their planning. Hello lovely couples, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Lauren, wedding planner and owner of Bluebird Creative. If you are new here, congratulations on your engagement. You are on a super exciting journey, and I hope you find my channel useful with its tips and tricks. I provide a weekly dose of wedding planning goodness for the modern couple, so you are in good hands. This week is really exciting, and I think the timing is really important as well, especially with everything that's going on in the world. We need a little bit of help. We need to know how to manage our feelings and our stress and anxieties that could be creeping up on us. So I'm very excited to announce that today we are having a conversation with Charlotte from the Bridal Mindset. Charlotte is a CBT therapist, and she is going to give us some advice on how to manage stress and anxiety within our wedding planning. So really exciting, very topical, and I hope that you get some amazing tips from this video. And if you are suffering with any overwhelm and anxiety, perhaps some of these tips can help, but obviously do go and speak to your health practitioner as well if you are finding things a little bit difficult. So without further ado, let's jump in to this week's interview. Okay, Charlotte, so really exciting to have you on the channel. Thank you so much for being here. I guess the first place that we should start, because a lot of people might actually be wondering what it is, can you just give us a little bit more information on what CBT therapy is for anybody that doesn't know?
Hi, I'm Charlotte from the Bridal Mindset. So cognitive behavioural therapy is an approach that looks at how our thoughts and our behaviours impact upon how we're feeling. So how the things that we think of might impact upon our mood, and also the things that we do or don't do and how that impacts upon how we're feeling and our mood. And it helps us understand what's maintaining those changes in mood. So for example, if we're feeling quite anxious, it will help us identify what's maintaining that anxious mood, and the same for low mood and depression as well. Helps us understand what's maintaining and what's keeping that mood going. And it's quite a practical form of therapy. So it's about skill building. So it's about learning skills and techniques to help improve how we're feeling. So it could be that we target different types of thoughts, or we challenge different thoughts or the way that we're thinking to have a positive impact upon how we're feeling. Or it could be that we look at the things that we're doing or not doing, learn a little bit more around the impact of those things, and ultimately alter or change those areas so that it has a positive impact upon how we're feeling.
Fantastic. I love that. I'm really into mental health. I think it's really important that people speak about this and use their platforms to speak about it a bit more. So I'm really excited to find out more from you today. So I guess my next question is, what is the difference between stress and anxiety, and what are the signs?
So stress is an immediate response to a situation that's going on around us. So it could be quite a day-to-day change. So for example, different things going on at work, different things going on in our personal life, at school, whatever it might be. And we tend to have that immediate stress response. And that's because our body's picking up that there's a threat in our environment. So for example, it could be a meeting at work, it could be an interview, it could be an exam or a test, or it could be a wedding. So our bodies and our feelings are building up in terms of that threat. So stress is day-to-day response. It's something that happens to us all. But the good thing, I suppose, about stress is that once that situation has changed back, or it's been done, so for example, that interview's been done, or we've had our wedding, that stress starts to reduce and we start to feel better again. Now, in regards to anxiety is a more persistent set of feelings, and it can be quite hard to identify the trigger and what's causing it. So with stress, we might go, right, yeah, I've got an interview coming up, or well, I've got a meeting with the vicar next week. I'm feeling quite stressed about it, or don't quite know what to ask. With anxiety, it's quite like an underlying feeling that's there, and it feels like it's bubbling under. Sometimes it might get a bit better. So for example, if we have that meeting with the vicar, we might feel a sense of relief, but ultimately that anxiety is still there, and it's that underlying persistent feeling that we notice. And the signs and symptoms for anxiety and stress are very similar. Okay, so it could be things like feeling quite tense, feeling quite shaky, feeling quite sick. We might have headaches, and we might be quite hot and sweaty. Personally, get quite irritable. We might be quite snappy with those around us, and sometimes as well, our thoughts can feel like they're racing, and we can't quite stop or get control of those thoughts. So it's really important to be aware of what your signs and symptoms are, because they're very different. Okay, so each person has a different set of signs and symptoms, but ultimately stress is something that will go. You'll start to feel better once that situation has been ticked off, once that thing has been done. But it can lead to anxiety as well. If there's a dripping effect, if you like, it can ultimately lead to that sense of anxiety, that feeling of anxiety. So knowing those signs and symptoms can be really important to help us manage those stress levels.
That's really interesting. So I guess stress can kind of lead on to anxiety if it's not managed and dealt with in the right way. I'm sure it doesn't always lead to, but that's really interesting that can obviously be where things go with that dripping effect that you mentioned. So as we know, wedding planning can feel a little bit overwhelming. What are the best tips to deal with this? What would you suggest that people can do, and maybe what skills have they got that they can add into their toolkit?
So my first tip with managing that overwhelming feeling of wedding stress is to make a schedule. Get a bit of a plan in place. So when we're feeling overwhelmed, it's really hard to access those thoughts. It's really hard to kind of make sense of things. So let's prevent that. So put a schedule, put a plan in place, break it down. So if you've got certain tasks that you know you need to do, break them down into smaller, more manageable chunks. Set time limits for things as well. So if you've got a Wedman task, for example, that you need to do, don't spend hours and hours and hours doing it, because ultimately it will stress you out. You'll start to become overwhelmed. So set a time limit. Perhaps, right, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do this for half an hour, and then I'm going to go for a walk, or then I'm going to have a nice bath or something. About rewarding ourselves for doing things, especially if it's quite a difficult thing, like if you're having to cut down a guest list, for example. Set a time limit. Be fair on yourself. When you're planning, also think about the 4 W's. Okay, so what is it that you need to do? When can you do it? Where are you going to do it? And who with? So it could be that there's certain tasks that you need the registrar, or you need a certain supplier on board to be able to do it. So consider those 4 W's when scheduling and when planning, because that's going to be really helpful, so that when you get to that point, you know exactly what you're doing. There's no time for, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, or yeah, but I can't do this. Plan it in so that when you get there, you can do it straight away. Secondly, recognize what you can control. So with life, there's always things that we don't have control over, but there will be some elements that we can control. So be able to identify that first of all. So ask yourself, can I do something about this? If you can, great. Add it to the schedule, use the 4 W's, break it down, put a plan in place. If you can't do something about it, acknowledge that and be fair on yourself. So, you know, have that chat, take that moment, be quite stubborn with yourself, but identify, can I do anything about this right now? No, I can't. Can I put a plan in place? Is that going to change anything? No, I can't. And accept that. And it's a really hard thing to do, but again, the more stubborn you are with yourself, the more confident you'll feel with being able to do that as well. And that can be really helpful with managing with that wedding stress. Thirdly, communicate. Communicate with people around you, whether that's your partner, whether that's your parents or friends or bridal party, groom's party, suppliers, whatever it might be. Communicate, okay? So that could be things like communicating the time where you've scheduled certain wedmen. It could be communicating that actually you're finding things quite difficult at the moment, so you're just going to take a little bit of space away from making decisions. Or it could be that you're getting suggestions left, right and centre, and perhaps that's making you feel more stressed, making you feel more overwhelmed. Communicate that. People often feel quite uncomfortable, or sometimes they don't quite know what to do or what to say or what their role is. If you're able to communicate that, they know where they stand. And it can feel quite uncomfortable, but it's going to be more beneficial in the long run as well, because everyone knows what their role is, where they stand, but also you're able to communicate how you're feeling and some of the things that you find difficult as well. Fourth thing links in with that, so it's being assertive. So assertive is being able to let people know sort of how you're feeling and what you want, while still respecting their boundaries as well, and them as a person. So it could be that perhaps you don't quite feel comfortable saying no outright. I'm absolutely one of those people. So it could be that you make a compromise. Oh, actually that's a really good idea, but it's not something we're going to be able to do, but how about this instead? If you're able to communicate and be quite assertive and be able to communicate those plans and your wants and your needs, then again, it helps with managing that stress, and there's not that kind of underlying worry of upsetting people, because you're being able to communicate that, you're being able to say in a helpful way and quite a productive way of what's going to be best, remembering that it's your day as well. And the last thing is take a break. Take a break from wedding planning. It can become so consuming, and that's great, isn't it? And sometimes amazing, and we really relish it, and it's about enjoying that process. But when we're starting to feel a little bit stressed or a little bit overwhelmed, that's when it stops becoming enjoyable. So take a break from it. Have a few evenings a week of no wedding plans or no wedding talk. Use that schedule to schedule in those times where you can have a bit of a break as well, because it's going to be so helpful, and it's going to bring back that wedding spark, especially if at the moment you're feeling like it's quite a daunting prospect in terms of wedding planning. Give yourself that space. Use a week off or something, just to be able to take a moment, get back what's important to you, and then start again.
That's really, really interesting. So we've talked about couples managing overwhelm during their planning. So how can couples use CBT to reduce stress before the wedding? Because I guess, that's when it really can sort of start to creep up. The closer you get to the wedding, people can start to feel that stress or that worry, or as things really start to come together. So any tips that you've got on that would be amazing.
So it's important in regards to this question to consider that not everyone needs cognitive behavioural therapy. And often when we're having a response to the situation that's quite understandable, CBT isn't appropriate. Okay, so CBT's when we're perhaps having an excessive response to a situation. So it's important to recognise that wedding planning can be stressful, and that it's okay sometimes to feel that stress, to feel that overwhelm. So when CBT can be helpful for wedding planning and managing that stress is using that structure, using that understanding. So if you're noticing that you're starting to feel quite overwhelmed, take a moment, pause, identify what's going on. What am I thinking at the moment? What am I doing? And how am I feeling? Once we're able to start to identify those things, as I mentioned before, we can do something about it. So that structure approach of CBT, that skill learning, can be really, really helpful. So if we've identified that perhaps, we're feeling really stressed, we're avoiding wedding planning completely because it's overwhelming, let's do something about that. So use that schedule, plan those wedding slots in across your week or across the month. Be fair on yourself. Also breaking things down. So if you've got loads of jobs, your to-do list is papers and papers, break it down. Think about each task in hand. What makes it more manageable? So it could be that there's so many different aspects to a certain task. Start with one of them, manage that, get that ticked off and move on. Another way that CBT can be really, really helpful with managing that wedding stress is acknowledging what we can or can't control, managing that uncertainty. So when we're feeling anxious, that worry is starting to increase, and we might notice there's a bit of a spiral going with worrying. Again, pause. Take a moment and ask yourself 3 golden questions. So first of all, what can I do about this situation? Is there anything that I can do about it? By worrying about this situation, am I making myself feel any better? By worrying about this situation, am I changing the outcome? Once you've asked those 3 questions to yourself, You'll start to get a bit of a feel of if there is anything that you can do about it. Likelihood is, with a lot of these uncertainties, is that you've got no, nope, and no. So in that case, what's the point in worrying about it? And it's quite a hard concept to think of, but actually, if we're worrying about it and it's not changing the outcome, it's not making us feel any better, and there's actually nothing we can do about it right now, why are we worrying about it? Why are we spending all this time and energy on that topic? So acknowledge that and do something about it, okay? So acknowledge, I can't do anything about it at the moment. It's not making me feel any better. So I'm going to focus on this instead. It's quite a hard thing to do, but the more you practice it, the better it will be and the more confident you'll feel in being able to manage that.
Some really, really good advice there. Thank you. And what about the wedding day itself? So what's the best way to deal with wedding day anxiety? I'm sure you've got some amazing information here because this is so fascinating so far. I'm absolutely loving it. It's so informative. So yeah, so wedding day anxiety, what are your best tips and advice for managing that?
So again, thinking and understanding that you're going to feel a little bit nervous on your wedding. It's natural, okay? And that's fine. So if you do feel nervous, if you are feeling a bit anxious, be kind to yourself, be fair to yourself, and acknowledge it's okay. However, there are things we can do to help that be less difficult and less of a burden on our wedding day. So what I would suggest is start to get a bit of a relaxation routine in place now. So no matter how far away your wedding is, start this routine, get a relaxation routine. So for example, it could be things like identifying certain songs that help make you feel a little bit more relaxed. It could be identifying certain scents, certain smells that help you feel relaxed, but also start to be able to switch off. So one really helpful thing is to engage in what we call grounding techniques. So when we're feeling quite anxious, when we're feeling quite overwhelmed, everything feels like it's going at 100 miles per hour. So to be able to slow that down, focus on the here and now. So look around you in your room and identify 5 things that you can see. So as you're practicing this on the run up to your wedding, it might be that you just sat in your living room, but really tune in with what's around you. So it could be like I can see the picture frames on the wall there, I can see the TV, I can see the dog, I can see at the window outside, I can see the sofa. But really tuning in and saying these things to yourself, might be out loud, might be in your mind. Also start to listen to some sounds. So identify 4 sounds that you can hear. So again, on the run up to your wedding, it might be that you just sat in your living room, but really tune in. Can you hear any sounds outside? Can you hear the telly? Can you hear your partner or a family member in another room? Tuning into these will help us focus on the present, on the here and now. Also, be able to identify certain smells in the environment. So it sounds a bit like a bizarre one, but this is where we're really tuning in. It's taking that concentration, it's taking that focus. So it could be that perhaps the dog's just been fed or the cat's just been fed. Perhaps there's tea on, perhaps you've got that scented candle out. Really tuning in and focusing on those smells. And then taking one deep breath and exhaling really slowly. Now what this is going to be able to do, or what it's going to help you be able to do, is on your wedding day, ground yourself. So any of those nerves or anxiety that's building up, it will help bring you to the here and now. So when we're worrying, we're focusing on future events, we're focusing on things that are happening in the future. Let's bring it back to that moment you're in. And think about some of those things as well. So as you're sat there and you're doing those grounding techniques, 5 things that you can see around you. It could be your bridesmaids getting ready in the morning. It could be your mum or another person putting out some nibbles for you to eat. They're going to be really nice things that you can see around you. Again, with those sounds, if you've identified a song or a playlist that you've got that helps calm you, helps put you in a really nice place, put that on, and then you're able to tune in with those musics. Same with the smells. On the run up to your wedding, identify those smells that give you that warm feeling and light those candles or put that diffuser on, and it's going to help calm you. And then taking that one deep breath, it's going to bring you back to the moment and help you remember why you're there and bring back that excitement rather than that anxiety. And the reason that I suggest to get this routine, this relaxation routine up and going straight away is so that you are practicing it. So relaxation is a skill. It sounds bizarre, but it's a skill. It's something that we need to learn to do. And the same with swimming. So we wouldn't dive into a pool without learning how to swim first of all. Same with relaxing, okay? Practice that relaxation when you're feeling calm anyway, on the run up to your wedding, when you're feeling okay, get that routine going. Because then if you are feeling more nervous, more anxious on your actual wedding day, you can apply, you know exactly what you're doing. Your body will start to respond to that as soon as it smells those smells or it hears that music. So get that wedding routine in line now.
Amazing. Such good information, some really fantastic tips there, and actually something that I'm going to take note of, so that if I find that any of my brides on the day are perhaps struggling, then I can give that advice that you've just told us as well. So that's really, really useful. Thank you. I guess my final question is, how can couples use CBT to get excited about planning a postponed wedding? Because there are obviously a lot of couples going through this at the moment, and we know that they've been struggling and that they've lost the excitement, and perhaps they're just struggling to sort of, get their mojo back for their planning, because they're worried that things could change again. And hopefully that's not going to be the case anymore, because there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But some couples are really struggling to sort of find that zest and that energy again. So what advice have you got for those couples?
So if you've had to postpone your wedding, chances are, like us, it feels like you're on a bit of a roller coaster at the moment. Now, CBT can be really helpful to help manage how we respond to situations. So unfortunately, we can't control other people, we can't control sort of external events in the world or what's going on. However, we can manage and control how we respond to it. So thinking back to some of these techniques that we've been talking about in terms of applying a structure. So CBT can help us get excited about planning our postponed wedding, because we can get a bit of a plan in place in regards to when we're doing things, when we're focusing on certain things, and helping us kind of look forward to different elements, different tasks, different wedding things that we've got to do. Secondly, that structure that we spoke about can be really helpful with managing that sense of overwhelm. So again, if you're feeling quite apprehensive, if things are feeling quite daunting for you at the moment, add that structure in, because it will be really helpful to always take things one step at a time. Also, by having the awareness of how we're feeling, we can do something about it. So like we've said, if we're aware of how our thoughts and our behaviours impact upon how we're feeling, it's quite a powerful position to be in. So if we're noticing that perhaps we're avoiding wedding planning because we're feeling quite apprehensive about it, we can do something about that. So we can use that schedule, put things in place, break things down to be able to make it more manageable, but also to hopefully make it feel more enjoyable as well. So CBT can just help us get that excitement, because it's helping us manage those things we can manage, so that we can prevent that stress, we can prevent that overwhelm, so ultimately we can enjoy our wedding planning process. But what I always say, and I say this to myself, I say this to clients, is be kind to yourself. It's a difficult time, and it's really, really common, really, really natural that we're going to feel like we're on that emotional roller coaster. Give yourself that bit of space, take a break, but use some of these skills that we've mentioned, that structuring, that planning, the 4 W's, thinking about those 3 golden questions that we can ask ourselves about situations as well. It's just going to help improve how we respond to different situations, so that we've got the confidence to be able to tackle anything that's thrown at us. So ultimately, again, we can enjoy the wedding planning process. I really hope that's been helpful. I really hope that there's been some useful tips in there and some things to get you thinking about what you can do, especially in terms of that routine, that relaxation routine on the run up to your wedding as well. So yeah, I do hope it's been helpful for you.
That's so useful. Thank you so much, Charlotte. I have found this really insightful. There's some fantastic tips here, and hopefully everybody and you guys can take away some new skills and some new ideas to add to your toolkit to help manage your stress and anxiety within your wedding planning and even on the wedding day. Remember guys, do seek medical advice if you are struggling, or speak to a professional. But I hope that you found some really good tips from Charlotte, who, as I mentioned at the beginning, is a qualified CBT therapist and has just given us some fantastic information to help deal with stress, anxiety and overwhelm. So guys, I hope you found this video helpful today. It is the first one we've done where we've actually done an interview with somebody else in the industry. I really enjoyed doing this. I hope you enjoyed it as well. If you did, make sure that you comment in the box below. Let us know that you enjoyed it, and if there's anybody else that you would like me to be in conversation with on the channel, then let us know in the comments box below, because we can arrange that. I hope you guys have a fantastic week, and I will see you next week for some more wedding planning goodness. See you later guys.